Welcome folks to this party creation guide for champions of Krynn. This is a guide that takes into account the whole trilogy. So if you want to take this party through the whole trilogy, this is the guide you have to look for. So a few things of note. I made this guide on the presupposition of level caps and experience gain. Now in Champions of Krynn, when you finish the game, you end up with around 260k points of experience. So you need to divide that amount. Now you could grind more if you want. I suggest you do that before you finish the game, right? Go around, kill some dragons, kill some hill giants, get as much as possible, squeeze as much as possible. Maybe you can reach 300k. But with 265k experience, you have to divide that by the number of classes you have, if you're multi-classing, to find out where you're gonna stop leveling up. Unless, of course, you're grinding. Now, let's start with the first party member, which is party member A. Amazing name, I know. It's good to be named A. You need a Knight of the Crown, and that's because it's just an amazing class. The Knight is probably the best and will end up being the most useful class. Like, you don't need clerics later in the other installments if you have a Knight, because the Knight, by the time you reach Dark Queen of Krynn, will be able to cast 7th level or 8th level spells. I know it's crazy, but it is what it is. So if you want to go with 3 frontliners being knights, sure, knock yourself out. But I find that to be quite boring, to be honest. So the knight is the first one you need. You're gonna need this guy to gain access to Dargard's Tomb. Dargard's Tomb is a side quest that you unlock once you finish Gargard Keep. You go to Gargard Keep, go to the outpost, and eventually they will tell you, hey, there is this tomb nearby, the Draconians are trying to steal stuff. Go there, stop their plans. Alright, and get the stuff. So you get a nice Solamnic plate that only a knight can use. That is not a magical suit of plate, so you will run into encumbrance and movement limits, but it gives you an amazing amount of armor class compared to a simple plate mail. And you can stack the armor class with a ring of protection because it's non-magical, and a non-magical plate mail works well with a ring of protection. So if I had like a ring of protection +1 and a plate mail +1, it wouldn't work. At least I think it shouldn't work. Maybe I'm mistaking that for the Forgotten Realm version. Whatever the case, it's an amazing class to pick. So the stats you need are pretty much what you would expect from a fighter. So constitution, dexterity, and strength, but you need a little bit of wisdom, so take that into account. The requirements are not particularly heavy. You don't need to become a Knight of the Rose. You can stop at being a Knight of the Sword. So play as a Knight of the Crown. At the end of the game, you can upgrade to a Knight of the Sword, or maybe you can do that later in the second game. You can upgrade to a Knight of the Sword once spells become a real thing. So this is the first party member, lawful good, of course. Try to roll a good constitution score, maybe 18. If you can get 18 constitution, you will get the biggest amount of hit point bonuses. Like with 18 constitution, you can get 14 hit point per level. So that's great. Dexterity is also important for initiative and armor class. Now, you don't need much initiative with a knight, so I wouldn't worry too much about dexterity, but don't let it be too low. 16 is okay. Now, below 16 is gonna be trouble. Now, you can go with 15, but keep in mind a worse armor class will make your fighter susceptible to paralyzation from the Sivax. I think. No, wait, it's not well, one of the Draconians. They do paralyze on hit, so if they land a hit, you need to make your saving throw check, and if you fail that, you get paralyzed, and then you get taken down. So having that extra 2-3 points of armor class, that's gonna be great. Or you can modify your characters and cheat. That's up to you. Now the second party member, which is very important, that's why it's called B, is gonna be a lawful good cleric of Majer, splash with a Ranger. Now this is gonna be a Silver Nasty Elf, all right? And you're gonna need this guy. You can reach maximum level with this guy through the entire of the trilogy, and you need to be good because Rangers, that's the way Rangers roll. And so you can only be a Cleric of Good. A Cleric of Good will advance. I think it advances lower than a Cleric of Neutrality, but a Cleric of Neutrality acquires first level 3 spells before the Cleric of Good. Doesn't really matter much, it just doesn't. But a Cleric Ranger is an amazing choice for. He has a lot of hit points, the fighting prowess of a warrior, but in this game, Ranger caps at level 7, so you will not get 1.5 attacks per round, which means one round you attack once, the next round you're gonna attack twice. That's how they made it possible. And you need to be a Cleric Ranger. Okay, you can reach maximum level in both classes. Be sure to pick a Silver Nasty Elf. It doesn't really matter the parameters, because by the end of that Night of Krynn, you'll be enlarging your party members. So they will always sit at 21 strength, or whatever it is. 20, 21, 22. It depends on the level of the mage. So what do you need for this guy in Champions of Krynn? Constitution, because you're a frontliner and you want to make use of the Ranger, extra hit points per level. So you can gain, the Ranger has a 1d8 if I'm not mistaken, or maybe a 1d10, I don't know. I think it's a 1d8. So you get 12 hit points per level divided by 2, that's 6. So you get 6 from the Ranger if you have 18 Constitution, and a Cleric is a 1d8, so plus 2, because a Cleric doesn't get access to the extra Constitution from 17 and 18. So it's 10 divided by 2, that's 5. So you get 5 hit points. So you get 5 on the Cleric and 7 on the Ranger, which gives you an entirety of 12 hit points per both levels. There's anything else here? No. Strength, sure, but you know, you will find items, and it's not that you really need that. I did roll a good stat, but it's very important that for Cleric you roll with 18 wisdom, because you need the 10 wisdom plus the spell level to determine if you are able to cast that spell. So if you want to cast level 8 cleric spells, which are very good, you need to have 18 wisdom. Okay, so just make sure you have 18 wisdom. Everything else, just make 18 wisdom, 18 constitution, and you know, the game will look at this roll. This is the first roll I got, and it's just amazing. You can switch stats. Maybe you can switch charisma for wisdom, and then you can switch the 14 in charisma for the dexterity, or you can do whatever the hell you want. But just be aware that you need 18 wisdom in order to cast level 8 spell. The third party member is gonna be a dwarf, a mountain dwarf. Is gonna be a cleric fighter. I think it's a mountain. Let me make sure it's a mountain dwarf, because I really want to be sure it's a mountain dwarf, because the dwarf have some differences and you need to be sure. I don't want to tell you bad things, so just make sure that we get the proper thing. Now, what is the goddamn thing? Maximum level limits by race. I need to check that one from the Dark Queen of Krynn, because of course. And let me switch to the display screen here. You need to open up the journal from your Dark Queen of Krynn in order to understand if you can take these guys to the end of the trilogy. I don't know what I did, but it was a bad thing. Alright, let's beyond the Tavern Tales. You can find this table. Here you can find the maximum level limits by race and class. So, as a fighter cleric, you can pick whichever you want. You can pick a hill dwarf or a mountain dwarf. Now, usually mountain dwarves are a little bit stronger when it comes to the resistances than hill dwarves. So pick mountain dwarves, doesn't really matter. As you can see, we can reach our maximum level in fighter, but only level 10 as a cleric. but that's okay because this is gonna be mostly a support cleric, not really our main healer. If you notice, we made a Sylvanesti elf because we can get maximum level in cleric and maximum level in ranger. Now you can pick Quali Nasty, but honestly, for variety's sake, just pick a Sylvanesti elf and you'll be fine. Let's go back to the party creation screen. There you go. This is the dwarf. This is going to be a cleric of neutrality. Obviously, being a dwarf, you can only have access to reorcs, which is a-okay because reorc gives me +1 to hit. All right, so I can start with already 18 taco, and if I had rolled a higher strength, let's say 1876 something, I would have 17 taco, and that's great because the more taco, the easier it is to actually hit enemies. You don't have a lot of hit points because you are a cleric of neutrality, which only gets 1d8. If you are a cleric of good, you will start with 2d8, and then you go 3d8, 4d8. But this guy starts with 1d8, and then you gain another level. Now, arguably, you won't be able to cap this class because you need 225,000 experience points to get to level 8. Now, if you're multi-classing, you're gonna get half. You're gonna get 130k, so it's enough to get you to level 7, but not enough to make you cap the cleric. But who cares? A cleric gains spells on all the levels, so even if you get to say level 8, you gain nothing. It is relevant. And a fighter, which allows you can get to level 8 as a fighter, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, it requires you 125k experience, and we know that you will get that amount. Yes, a fighter to reach level 8 requires 125k experience with an average of 260k experience divided by 2. You just get to level cap by the end of the game. Alright, cleric of neutrality requires 225, so you will get to level 7 instead, which, you may not be optimized, but I think it's the best way if you want to incorporate a dwarf. Now later on, you can replace this party member with a paladin if you so desire and remove the dwarf. That's up to you, it's your choice, because the dwarf will be limited to level 10 cleric, which only gives him access to level 5 spells, I think. Yes, level 5 spells. You need to be 11 to 11 to have access to level 6 spells, then 13 to have access to level 7 spells, and then obviously you need 15 for the last spells. That's the way it goes. So these party members, you can take him up to the end of the game. He will suffer a little bit because you will not be able to level up cleric past that Knight of Krynn because you will stop at level 10. That is a big problem. The next party member is a Kender, a cleric of good, Kirijolit, cleric thief. Now, I did not explain to you why the ranger is a ranger of Majer. The ranger of Majer is because we will be reaching maximum level as a cleric, and Majer gives me +2 to the levels of my turning undead ability. So I'm considered 2 levels higher for my turning undead purposes, which is extremely important in Death Knight of Krynn, less so in Dark Queen of Krynn, but you will still find some undeads there, but Death Knight of Krynn is going to be brutal. So you're going to have a Kender for the sake of completion. Now there are some dialogues that are available, I think, in Dark Queen of Krynn if you are a Kender, if you have a Kender in your party. And also the Kender has a unique ability, so we want to capitalize on that. The ability of the Kender is to yell, which basically sends the enemies into a rage, and they will try to kill the cleric, the Kender. However, against any other target, they will get a -2 penalty to tackle, which means that even though they are in Berserk and they will deal a couple extra points of damage more, I don't remember if it's 2 or 3, they will have a 10% chance higher to miss you. So the ability of the cannon is extremely good, because especially if in the second game, if you use a paladin in place of the dwarf, you can get a total of +4 to your avoidance, because a paladin gives you an aura of protection from good, so you will have a +2 to armor class and saving throws against undead, against evil creatures, and the candle will yell, applying a penalty, which totally you have a bonus of 4, which is a 20%. Also, the candor is the only one able to use a hoopak, so you will find hoopaks in the game. You will find a hoopak in throttle, and you will, it's a magical hoopak, it's a +2. You will find a +4 or a +5. I think it's a +4 later in the other installments. So it seems like you need a candor to get the best out of the items you get. Now you can skip the candor and make anything else, and I would say if you skip the candor, you need a thief. So what you can do is a variance of what I've done, and I would say if you want to skip the candor, you can make a cleric of neutrality, pure class, human, and then make a fighter thief dwarf. Now fighter thief dwarf will not cap, but you know, it's an alternative. That's up to you. Cleric and thief, what is this guy gonna do? Because thief caps out very early, I think it's 100 and something experience. He caps at level 9, by the way. You will be done leveling thief halfway through the game, or less than halfway through the game. So having a secondary class like a cleric, and by the way, Candace will not be able to cast level 7 spells, because even though their level cap allows them to do that, I think, uh, you will be limited to Wisdom 16. So even if you will only get to cast spell at to level 6, but I think, okay, in you can only get to level 8 in that Knight of Krynn for your cleric. So the candle will be really, really bogged down when it comes to spell. I don't know what they did, but they did change that in the Dark Queen of Krynn. So in Dark Queen of Krynn, you can get to level 12, up to level 12 for your candor as a cleric. In Death Knight of Krynn, the limit was 8. So there is this little bit of mess going on around the candor, but I'm sure you'll do just fine. Again, this is a support class. This is a support role, so you can throw obviously bless protections on all those things, but this guy is not going to be your main healer. And also because the level of your cleric caps, it's not going to be a good whole person thrower for the second and third game, but it's going to be decent for the first one, because you will not cap out. The last two party members are the mages. Now, I recommend making two fighter mages. They're gonna be both elves. And the reason for that is because a mage single class is gonna be very weak. Now, a mage single class will have 8d4 before you actually start to get 1 hit point per level. So 8d4 is not much. Okay, it's like 32 hit points. If you roll with 16 constitution, you can get 8d6, which is slightly, 6 times 6, 36, 42, 48. So you will end up the game with 48 hit points for a pure mage. Now, if you were to make a fighter mage, you will get a 1d10 plus your constitution bonus, which I recommend you get 18. So you get 14 hit points divided by 2, you get 7 hit points per level as a fighter, and then you get 3 hit points for your mage. Alright, very important. And that's total of 10 hit points, so you will end up with a lot of hit points for this class, which is far more than a pure mage. Now sure, a pure mage may level up faster, but I still recommend you take the fighter. You will not max out fighters because with elves you cannot get to the maximum level cap in the later installments, because a quality nasty elf will only reach level 14 as a fighter, which is enough to get you the second attack. You get the second attack at level 13 for a fighter, so yay. But you will cap out in Dark Queen of Krynn, which is, it is what it is, but that's, you're gonna be capped out. Or maybe it's in Death Knight of Krynn. Regardless, we don't really need the fighter for the prowess. We get all we need from the fighter, that's okay. And we are there for the magic user. Now, you can only max cleric and magic user for an elf, but the problem is that if you do a cleric mage, you won't be able to use bows, alright? Because cleric doesn't give you access to bows, and magic user doesn't give you access to bows. So you cannot get the benefit of the elf bonus, and second, the martial proficiency. So you will be stuck using maces and probably staff slings, I don't know, that kind of stuff, which is, not very good. So a sacrifice in your maximum level for a fighter is necessary, but you will end up with an amazing party member. And then you need the other option, which is the white mage. So you need a chaotic neutral fighter red mage. It's gonna be difficult to make because you need a lot of stats. You need high dexterity to win initiative. So that's why you're also an elf, because you get 19 dexterity. Great for initiative. So if you can roll a 19 in dexterity, you are golden. Just make sure you have enough intelligence, read 18 intelligence, to get the best spells in the game, which arguably are not the best spells, but what really matters is that you are able to cast delayed blast fireball. So just check on your journal if you can cast it, look at what level the spell is, and determine then if you need the intelligence of 18, or you can do without the last the power words and all those things. If you just need a delayed blast fireball, you can roll with less than 18 intelligence, but it's, arguably better to have 18, obviously, for the bonuses. But whatever, doesn't really matter. This is a Obviously, you want 18 constitution. Strength is irrelevant because you can enlarge yourself if you want. You can give these guys a girdle of ogre power. You get 2 ogre power bonuses in the first game, which are removed once you finish the game. But you can cheese. You can remove your party members before you finish the game, import the party into Death Knight of Krynn, and you'll be golden. Now you're gonna miss out the final fight experience and whatnot, but if you want to retain the Dragonlance and the 2 girdles, just remove the party members before you finish the game. The last party member is going to be a fighter white mage. And this is because, you need 2 mages. Mages are great. And this is the same as the other guy. Quoting the elf, you can make sisters or maybe a brother and a sister. You can roleplay the way any way you want. But you need a white mage. It casts a little bit of different spells than compared to the red mage. Red mage is more offensive based, white mage is more on a spell casting nature. It doesn't really matter, you need to be a fighter regardless. So the same things I've said for the red mage will apply to this class. Again, you need the fighter levels for HPs and taco, and you are sitting in the back line. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna cast spells all your day? Are you gonna throw slings and darts? No, you're gonna shoot with a bow, which is much more stronger than a sling or a dart or whatever you're gonna use with your mage. Arguably there are items that, like the darts of Hornet Nest, something like that will destroy enemies, but they're quite rare and they cost a lot. Regardless, a pure mage is something I heavily discourage, because you may not see that in Champions of Krynn, but later on when you will be fighting dark robe mages, which is the evil mages, the black robes, you will encounter those mages that come pre-buffed, so they have minor globes of invulnerability, they have invisibility, they have all that stuff, and the only way you can counter them is to throw fireballs. And if you, for some reason, lose initiative, or you may not, or you don't get one of them, they will lob fireballs at you, delayed blast fireballs even. They will drop all the deadly spells, and if you don't have the hit points, you're gonna die. And if you die, you then have to resurrect the guys, getting a penalty to Constitution, which is not great, and it's bad. You will restart the game, you will be frustrated, you're gonna say, oh, game is shit. And we don't want that, right? So get a fighter white mage instead of a white mage. Sure, you won't be able to cap the mages, won't be able to get to level 8 because they require too much experience. I don't know what that is, because you will require too much experience to get to the level cap. So for a red robe mage, you need 180k experience, and for a white robe mage, you need 200k experience. So if you're a single class mage, you can reach the level cap in this game. However, you will be extremely squishy, and I do not recommend that because it's horrible. It makes you very miserable. So you divide 260k divided by 2 gives you 100k, which puts you halfway through level 7. So you get your 4th level spells, you just don't get to level 8, which gives you one more level 4 and one more level 3 spell, which may be important, but in the grand scheme of things, I'd rather have the survivability and the uh, tactical uh, adaptability of a fighter, so I can lob arrows and cast spells and engage in melee. Now, my previous playthrough of the trilogy, I had exactly this party composition with one exception. I did not have a ranger cleric, I just had a ranger, but the rest of the party was, the same. So the Kenner was a little bit of a problem because it was supposed to be my main healer, but I did not check for the level caps, so I got stuck with not level max clerics. But aside from this, the party composition was the same, and I must say the 2 mages were the MVPs. Also the ranger, but that's on Dark Queen of Krynn. The fighter red mages are gonna be great. No, that was not the same. I had a fighter red mage thief, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken. I might be mistaken. I might have just had a fighter red mage. Regardless, I think this is the best party composition to take you through the entirety of the trilogy. Again, you can drop the dwarf for a paladin. You would lose a cleric of neutrality, but quite honestly, it's not like you lose anything lore-wise. So you do you. If you, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna, probably play Dead Knight of Krynn with a new party, with this type of party, but instead of the dwarf, I will use the paladin. But we'll see about that. Regardless, I think this is the best party, and yeah, you can play with. By the way, you can play with any party you want, so long as it's balanced. But the problem is, it's how much frustration do you want to suffer through compared to, playing a little bit of an optimized party. You can roleplay with a pure thief if you want, but you will be frustrated because you will be missing a lot of attacks, and it's not a good idea. So just listen to me. So this is the party creation guide for Champions of Krynn, guys, to take up to Dark Queen of Krynn and finish the entire trilogy. Hope this was helpful to you, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.